we are with me, Paula Free, and Brett, Dr. Brett, I like to call him, and Marty. So we're gonna do just a kind of a sweet little interview, and I have some questions for Dr. Brett.
Please fire away.
I would like to learn a little bit about your background, how that ties into Power Run with Limb Loss and our mission, and what you're doing now. And then I'll have a couple more questions for you. So go ahead and tell us who you are.
So I will share my background, the condensed Cliff Notes version of it, and kind of how that ties into Power Run with Limb Loss and the services that you provide, and how we connected also. So let's see. So as I was growing up, my father had something called ALS, or amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. It's what it's also known as Lou Gehrig's disease, or it's known as Stephen Hawkins was somebody who was famous who had that. And so growing up, I remember being young, as maybe 5 years old when he got that diagnosis of ALS, and he was almost kind of given a pamphlet that said, you've got a prognosis of maybe 2 years to live. Sorry, we don't know much about this. That's what you got. And he ended up living much longer than that, 9-10 years with it. But my whole childhood until my freshman year of high school, I saw him going through these neurodegenerative changes, where he went from a strong, healthy young guy to, being confined to a wheelchair, not really being able to talk or lift his arms or legs or anything. And eventually passing away because of the inability to breathe, because you got to use those muscles to breathe. And so like I said, it kind of set me on this quest, this alchemist quest, so to speak, as this background came on behind us. It was this quest of magic. Yeah, all, like I said, health and human performance related. And I started with the idea of let food be thy medicine. I knew in the traditional sense there were no answers in the Western medicine. So I went with the idea of let food be thy medicine. And I actually started off as a chef. I went to culinary school and studied all things culinary arts. And from there, went on and studied clinical nutrition and dietetics, since food and nutrition tie together. And then that led me into a continued pursuit of, moved out, I was in Chicago, and I moved out to California and studied traditional Chinese medicine and sports medicine chiropractic. Yeah, so yeah, it was a bit along the way, studying. I worked at a general nutrition center so I could learn everything I could about herbs and supplements on the Western side. In traditional Chinese medicine, all the traditional herbs. And I got certifications in hypnotherapy and levels, but there were all of these underlying challenges of limb deficiency, of spinal cord injuries, of CP, whatever it may be. And so from a healthcare perspective, it gave me lots of new challenges to take on, and my background made a good fit for it. And so absolutely fell in love with it, and actually ended up becoming the medical director for the US Paralympics, and traveled the world with Paralympic sport, and got to be with a lot of amazing people. And so that was an amazing place to be. It was an absolute dream job in healthcare. And not long after moving here, I came across an advertisement. I saw you on the front cover of a magazine in Power On with Limb Loss. And I think by random chance, I picked it up and I sent you an email and said, hey, I'm new to town. If there's ever anything I can do to help you in any way, let me know. And here we are years later.
I know. Wow. Well, I had no idea you had all of that background. So that is just amazing. But it's what I thought of when you talked about the several challenges with athletes. It's not just people with limb loss, it's people with physical challenges. And that's why I incorporated that into our nonprofit and the conference. So discovering your potential with limb loss and physical challenges. And I've done that since day one, and this was our 4th conference. So I was so stoked to meet you, and it's like, it doesn't matter where you're at. I think one of the reasons you saw one of our flyers for maybe our 2nd or 3rd conference, and it had Katie Sullivan on there, and Katie Sullivan is someone you worked with at the Olympics, and she's also someone that I met at a women's camp. So I consider her a friend. She's a friend of yours, and
Conference. What an amazing
thank you.
Production. Everybody pulling it together. Marty brought the party. I love it.
Yeah, right.
Thank you.
And,
Woohoo!
you know, a big takeaway of something that I really walked away with that puts a smile on my face today. I was thinking about this before we jumped on this call, was getting people engaged in the activities and realizing that, yes, obviously, you know, there are challenges that we all face many challenges in life. We heard the keynote speaker's story and the previous one, Katie's story. You know, all these, we all face challenges in life, but knowing that life doesn't stop. We keep going and we stay engaged. And I think physical activity sports, whether it be competitive or recreational, like we did a lot of recreational stuff there, it gives us a sense of value and joy in our life that we feel we may lose when we face a challenge, like losing a limb or having a spinal cord injury or something. I've seen it from the ground level. I've seen somebody right after they've had a spinal cord injury and they realize they're going to be in a wheelchair the rest of their life, how that affects the psychosocial, you know, everything that goes on in somebody's mind. But then I've seen them transition into activities, whether they're recreational or competitive, and that all starts to change. They start to build that confidence back and start to find that joy again, and that value that comes from it. And I got to see that at the conference this year too, seeing the rock climbing wall. And one of the individuals, you know, he got from his wheelchair and got put into the rig, and he made it to the top, and you could see just that look on his face. It was probably the first time he'd ever attempted climbing a rock wall like that, and there's something to say about that. So the conference all around amazing, and I recommend anybody who's seeing this in this digital format who hasn't been able to attend live to attend live if you can, because there's one thing seeing it, but there's another thing engaging in it and participating and meeting others and hearing other people's stories. That's pretty awesome.
Well, thank you. You really summed it up.
I see it growing. I see your impact and your reach growing because of the service you provide, and the service that your nonprofit provides is much needed, and you're awesome.
Thank you. Love you.